I know this is so weird. This is like the first time us seeing each other like this. Couple things, housekeeping rules. Uh, if you talk about my hair, if you ask me, we're not friends, okay? I know things a little interesting. Leave it alone, okay? Now that that's out of the way, I'm so excited to bring you this interview. I had a talk with Vanessa. She's a digital artist and illustrator from Malawi, and we talked about her journey, her start from being confused and juggling all of these ideas as to where to go, and how she transitioned into the path that she's in and being sure of the direction that she's going in. All of this being made possible through her working on her mindset and shifting that in a way that facilitated growth both in her business and in her personal life. Hopefully, there's some lessons in there that you can take and use for yourself, things that she's used that you could possibly use for yourself. I was last time, I still will be, probably the next time again, your host, Wellington. This is the Superpower Playbook, the ultimate guide to unleashing your creative superpower and living your full potential. Let's watch. But welcome. I'm so
Thank
glad to
you.
have you here.
It's a
Um,
pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I have obviously a bunch of questions for you, but before we get to, the awesomeness and the cool stuff that you're doing right now, I thought we should get to know you from before. So, like, what's your story? Like, where did you begin? Where did this all start?
Okay, so 7th September 1991. No, I'm kidding. Not that far back, right? Should I bring it forward a little bit?
Or even like childhood.
Totally
Yeah, it's
exposing
fine.
myself. Okay, yes, the story does kind of start in childhood because when I was very little, the one thing I knew for sure is I had a draw, like I was drawn to creativity a lot. So I describe myself as like the creative energizer bunny. So I was dancing, I was singing, I was drawing, I was in dramas and plays, and I loved to read, and I loved, music, and all these different things. So the interesting thing is that my story isn't conventional in the sense that I can say that, I'm one of those artists who I have just been drawing ever since I could hold a pencil, and that's the only thing I've ever wanted to do. I've loved a lot of things, so I consider myself very multi-passionate. But I think of all the passions, art did kind of stand out to me, because when I was moving into high school, I knew I wanted to do some kind of creative artistic career, but at that point it had already, the conditioning and the messaging of like that's not a real job was already beginning to sink in. So I thought that I was going to be an architect. I was like, oh, I think that's an interesting blend of like art and, you know something more practical, like a practical job. And then I did physics and maths, and then I was like, no, absolutely not. So I was just like, maybe this is not for me. And yeah, so I did take art for like my IGCSEs. I did do that, but when the opportunity came to do it for A level, I really wasn't sure if it's what I wanted to do. So I decided, I was like, you know what? No, I think I'm going to explore like just different options. And so I considered being a lawyer at that time, because my father's a lawyer. So I was just like, maybe I should just do this thing. And so that's when I was like, all right, maybe I'll just do law school and as a backup, which is a terrible backup because it's hard.
It's
So
hard.
I was just like, that is not something you do like that's a backup. No, no, no.
Mm.
That stuff is difficult. And so I was just like, but anyway, I didn't know what else to do. I was having a bit of an identity crisis. And so, but I did. I went to law school, and I'll be honest, I struggled. I really, really did through those years because I had stopped drawing. And so I had about 5 years from when I think the last time I had done art was for the IGCSEs. And so then I went about 5 years without doing any kind of art or drawing or anything like that. And I was into university, and it was just a very difficult season of my life. Like I just felt very lost, very confused. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was not happy on the path that I was on. And I just kept trying to change my major all the time. Like I was just like, oh, maybe I should go to this. And then I dabbled with maybe changing to accounting and, all these different things. But I somehow stuck the course. And yeah, I think it was about when I was in my second last year of university, because I was there for 5 years. Oh, I didn't mention that I went to Pretoria, South Africa, to study. Yeah, so I did my law degree at the University of Pretoria. And so, yeah, at the time, I was really just like, yeah, I'm not sure about this, but I stuck it through. And then it was around, yeah, my second last year where I don't know, I just felt this urge to start drawing again. And so I remember I was in the middle of class and I was just like, I feel like I really need to start drawing again. And so there was an art store that was like 10 minutes. And so we had a break in between classes, and I ran down to the art store and I grabbed like some pencils and crayons and whatever I could find. And then I went back into the next class that we're going into, and I started sketching and drawing, and I just felt so happy. I was like, oh, why did I ever stop? That kind of thing. And I think that's where I transitioned. And that was about 2015. And then, no, it's 2014. Yeah, 2014. And then end of 2015 is when I discovered digital art. And then I started dabbling in it in early 2016. So yeah, my mom was retiring, and so she was like, oh, you can get something. And so I had seen people drawing on phones, like on the Samsung Note 5. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm due for a phone upgrade. And so she's like, you can get this phone. So I picked that phone specifically just so that I could draw digitally on it. So that's how I actually got started drawing digitally on the Samsung Note 5.
Yeah. Humble beginnings. Humble beginnings.
We all gotta start from somewhere.
You have to. That's so interesting. I think a lot of people, because even for me, when I was younger, I'm still young, but younger than now.
Younger.
Yes.
Early.
Yeah. I also had so many other things that I used to love doing. I used to like make music videos, music, I also draw. I drew. It was all over the place. So I totally relate with that, like everywhere, everywhere type of thing.
Yeah, multi-passionate.
Yeah. So do you still carry those things? Like I've seen in some of your reels that your dancing skills are still on par. I see. Yeah, I'm busting a move, but I can tell like this is someone who knows, a thing. Yeah. So, do you still keep some of those passions?
It's so funny. Huh? Yeah, definitely. In fact, I am just like, there is too much that I want to do. I have too many hobbies. I'm just like, wow, like, well, how do I even make time for it? I do get a bit shy about my dancing, but yes, it's something that I love to do. I love to dance, and then I'm also very interested in just like different things as well, learning languages. I love learning languages and stuff. So yeah, I think it is important for me to have interests outside of art, because I found that the more I can expose myself to very different sources and influences, then I think that does make my creativity just a little bit richer. I feel like I'm able to come up with just slightly more interesting ideas. And so, yeah, I feel like I have too many interests in my life, and it's very difficult to like narrow in and focus.
Yeah. This is so, because my friends used to complain. They don't anymore because I think they've just accepted it. But they used to complain about the same thing. You've switched. You wanted this thing, and now you want to do this, and then you want to do that. Like, pick one. I'm like, I can't. This is who I am.
Yeah, yeah. But I think one thing I that helps me, because for a long time that actually did frustrate me. Like I was
Yeah.
saying, like in university, I was like trying to change majors, and all these things. And sometimes I've dabbled in a lot of things, especially in the online space. Like I looked into digital marketing and just graphic design and all these different things. And I used to feel very frustrated, like, oh, why can't I just like pick something? Why can't I make up my mind? But a quote that really, really helps me, I can't remember who specifically said it. I don't know if it's Oscar Wilde or one of these people, but they say, not all who wander are lost. And so it can feel like you're lost. And, people, we have that kind of stereotype when we see someone hopping from thing to thing to thing. It looks like they are lost. It's like, come on, man, make up your mind. So I'm very different. I have a younger sister. So she has just always known what she wanted to do her entire life, and she's doing that right now. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, that is amazing. That is not
Yeah.
my story. um, but it's sort of like what I've learned. So I had a little bit of shame around that, of just not being able to just pick one thing. But there's an interesting book as well that I'm reading called Range. And this guy, the subtitle is actually, are you familiar with the
Yeah,
book?
yeah. I haven't read it, but
Yeah,
it's on my hit
yeah.
list.
Yes, definitely. I started it, and it's just basically the tagline is how generalists can thrive in a world of specialization or something like that. And he's talking about how a majority of like the CEOs or people who have start successful companies, the average age is 45, and a lot of these people have had like completely different careers from what they are doing now. But he found that actually people who get a head start, like, oh, I just know what I'm going to do and I'm going to do this. And then the people who kind of potter around, eventually, because you have this diverse set of skills, because you've done so many different things, it adds richness. When you find the thing that you most want to do, you have this wealth of knowledge that you're able to bring to it. And again, like I said, it really helps with your creativity. So now it's something that I am embracing more about myself, like my wondering, and just being like, you know what, I embrace it as part of my process, and I try and make room for it within reasonable boundaries, of course, because then I would just be floating all over the place. Yeah, yeah,
I'm so glad someone else is going. Like, obviously, I know there's other people who go through this, but like, it's so nice to talk
yeah.
to someone. My version of Range was, what is it called? How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh,
And he's like,
is that like a book?
yeah, it's a book. It's a book. You'd love
Okay,
it. It's definitely,
okay.
it has the same concepts as Range. So we're looking at kind of like
Yeah.
the different principles that he lived by to do his creativity. But
Mm,
I think we know that Leonardo was a multi-passionate, multi-talented person. He did the paintings
yeah.
like the Mona Lisa. He also did anatomy drawings. He made
Mm,
machines of war, which most people don't know.
yeah.
He was a sculptor. He did all of this stuff. And no one says anything. They're like, oh, Leonardo's great artist. He's amazing. He does this and he does this. But like now, it's kind of looked upon in some type of way, like the whole jack of all trades, master of none. That
Uh-huh.
lovely phrase. Oh gosh.
But actually, I learned recently that finishes, it's cut off like jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master of one. That's actually
Mm,
how
mm,
it finishes. Like,
yeah.
I didn't know that. I think it's in Range or something like that. But I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's interesting. But I understand. Yeah, it's the typical idea of like, oh no, it's better to just like focus on one thing
Yeah.
only. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And he also in the book they also talk about kind of what you've discovered is that when you have a wealth of different avenues to explore and things to look at, you can
yeah.
pull that stuff and come out with something new, something different than someone who just does digital art only. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's so cool. That's so cool. um,
Yeah.
I saw that you mentioned that working on your mindset is something that's important to you. So obviously I hear you read Range, and what else do you get up to, and why is that so important to you?
Man, it's everything actually, because I if I get a little bit more into my story of like digital art itself around 2016 when I started, early 2016, that picture that I sent you.
Yeah, yeah.
From that picture, I was posting on Instagram and I was just having fun. I was having a great time and just sharing things. And then around towards the end of the year, I not the end of the year, sometime during the year, I started a separate Instagram account and I started sharing to that. And then a lady reached out to me and she was from the United States. She'd seen my work and she asked if I could illustrate a children's book. And up until that point, I did not even know that that was a viable career. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I ran to my mom and my sister. I was like, somebody's asking me, should I do it? And they're like, do it. So I literally am on Google. I'm like, how do you illustrate a children's book? And on the side, I'm emailing. I'm like, sure, that was going to be X amount of dollars. And I just basically gave that book away for free. It was like ridiculously cheap. She's probably like, I got a bargain. But yeah, that's how I got introduced to it. And it was very exciting. I managed to illustrate that book within 3 months. I was very surprised at myself. But then that brought up a lot of things because you know what happens when creativity and money and the stories just get weird, you know? So I was just like, all this stuff that I believed about being creative, making money from my creativity, all of those things, how I thought about myself. Actually, somebody says one of the best personal development tools, there are like two things that are going to challenge your character and force you to work on yourself. Number one is relationships. Number two is starting a business. Okay. So those are the things that are actually things where you're going to have to face a lot of things. And so starting a creative business, it just brought up a lot of things. And over the past couple of years, I would see myself struggling and questioning and wondering, like, you know, can I really do this? I would see areas in which I would sabotage myself, holding myself back. And the thing is, it doesn't matter how many people tell you you are good or you are amazing. If you do not believe that for yourself, then you will continue to hold yourself back from everything that you are potentially capable of. And that's the problem that I saw with myself. I was like, I could be further along, but I'm struggling. And so when I decided to take this really seriously back in 2020, I actually, a lot of the things, I did this more intuitively, not intentionally. I didn't intend to really be working on my mindset. But like I said, because I was doing a creative business, I was almost forced to do it. Like I was forced to face the issues and face the struggles. Towards the end of 2020, I actually had to, I took a, I did a bit of therapy because I reached a point where I was literally struggling to get out of bed. I couldn't create anything and I thought I was depressed. But my therapist actually was like, you are burnt out. And I was like, from what? Like, who gets burnt out doing creative things? Isn't it supposed to be fun? And then it's just like, yeah. So I think there was a lot of stuff that I had to learn and unlearn. And so, yeah, I feel like mindset work, working on yourself, it's the foundation of everything because there's a quote in the book, Essentialism. I believe it's Essentialism. I'm not sure. Is it the one? No, I think it's Essentialism by, is it Greg McEwen? Not sure. But basically, he says this one line where basically protect the asset. That's what the line says. And it's talking about yourself. And that was when I began to see myself as the asset. We think that, oh, you know, it's the tools that we use. These are things that, you know, make, no, it's you. It is you. And if you are not okay, as much as it's very romanticized, this tortured artist, I cannot create from a tortured place. I just can't. Like, I think I want to spread a lot of joy and happiness through my work, but also share real things and real experiences and real emotions. But I can't do that from a place where I'm genuinely not okay and non-functioning. So I found that the more that I grew as a person, then the more that my work also grew and got better and stuff. So they're inextricably linked. I incorporate some kind of personal development work into my routine, like every single day. I'm doing something to work on my mind, on my skills, on myself, just, yeah, to help me move forward, I guess.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I've gotten to this point. I love it and hate it whenever I have an interview with someone where they say so many cool things and I don't even know where to start and where to go. Um, you mentioned burnout.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because I was reading about it recently. And I
Mm.
think a lot of people misunderstand it. And like I think
Hmm.
same for you, like you couldn't even recognize initially that this
Yes.
is what burnout was. You thought it was something else. So what
Yeah.
what was it that, if you can still remember, what was it that you learned about burnout from that therapy session and then afterwards?
That burnout is not about all you have to do, but it's about what you think about what you have to do. And so I feel like um, there are people whose schedules are quite full, but they are able to kind of walk through it, and they're able to balance. They have pretty good boundaries and things like that. But I found that the way you think about the things that you have to do, sometimes you cannot have that much to do. Like it's one email that you need to write, okay? But the way that you are thinking about them is adding so much stress and pressure. I have to say the perfect things. I have to figure out how to do this just absolutely perfectly. Your validation and worth and value as a person is on the line. And so all of those things can add a layer of suffering to something that's already challenging. So growing your skills in anything, in any area, is challenging. It's a challenging thing. Doing new things, doing something different, that is challenging in and of itself. But the way that we think about things adds a layer of stress. And when we experience this stress in our body and it's unattended to, it can manifest as sickness. And a lot of people and scientific studies show that they say like almost 85, I'm going to use a modest number of like 85% of illnesses actually originate in your mind. And so burnout, even creative block, which is something that's huge amongst creatives. It's not about I don't know what to draw, I don't know what to write, but it's probably more so along the lines of you're already judging what it is. Like you are probably thinking, I don't think I could produce anything good. And so when you are in that frame of mind, it really adds this layer of resistance. If you did not care about whether you produced something that was good or not, then I think creative block would like not be a thing, because you just know like I can draw whatever or I can write whatever. It's okay. It's part of the process. But when you're like, it needs to be good, and your definition of good is quite limited, then that adds all this pressure. And so I think I really was putting pressure on myself to create good work. And that triggers perfectionism tendencies and all these different things. And so there was a lot of stress and pressure that I was adding with my own mind and the way that I was thinking about things, and that just makes it very difficult to work. It really just, if you don't, and also just not knowing how to take a break. Because with creative work, I think creatives are the ones who are most prone to suffer from burnout and not know it, like you're saying, because what we do is quite fun and we enjoy what we do, but we forget that we are not machines and robots, and that it's actually not healthy to do it all of the time. We feel like because we love it so much, then we should be doing it all the time. And so what I did pick up from that was really, that's why I try and spend a lot of time with like my hobbies and doing different things as well, and having clear set off points of like, okay, Vanessa, we stopped working now. Because rest is actually integral to the creative process. That's where we make a lot of interesting connections. When, it's the typical thing, like you go out for a walk, you've been struggling with something for a really long time, and then you go for a walk, and then you're like, oh, or you're in the shower, you're washing the dishes, you're cleaning the house, and then the ideas just come. That's actually called the default mode network in your brain. And it's something that operates when you're doing a light, not intensive activity where your mind is free to wander, but it still requires a little bit of engagement. So when you're in that state, then your mind is able to make interesting connections. And when you pose a problem to your mind, then when you're in that like relaxed state, then it's able to make connections and then pop the answer up to you. And so that's where I learned that, when you're struggling with something, you can kind of just leave it for later and be like, okay, let your mind do its thing, go off and yeah, relax. But I think that's what I needed to learn about burnout, to really be mindful about what I'm thinking about the work that I need to do, and also incorporate better boundaries around my rest and just generally taking care of myself. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I'm enjoying every word that you're saying because it's like it's so helpful,
uh,
and I can
yeah.
tell you are a scholar of the creative arts. I can see it, and it's so beautiful to see.
Oh my gosh.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's yeah.
I get you. I get you. I think there's a lot that can kind of make you forget that you're working, right? You are, of course, you're a creative and all that stuff, but just like you said,
Yeah.
it's a business. You're
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
employee of sorts. You're your own employee. You're the boss of the company. And there needs to be some kind of boundary between where work starts, where enjoyment comes in, where rest comes in as well.
Yeah.
Where fun fact. So
Mm-hmm.
I that the walk or the shower or all of that stuff, that's 10 minutes, okay. The walk or the shower or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is where I've come up with some of my best work. Me and my little
Yeah.
brother, we have this term that I coined called shower. That's so embarrassing. Shower bars. So I told you I write music, right? So
Shower bar.
sometimes I'd go in the shower and I'm minding my
Yeah.
business, and then something starts coming in, the
Just flows,
juices, it's
man. I
just
don't know if it's the
flowing.
water, the idea
Yeah,
of the flow with the
it's
water.
so
Yeah.
nice.
What
I
it
get
is.
out after I'm done, and because obviously like they're flowing, I have nothing to write down, which is maybe I should
Yeah.
invest. But I can't write anything down. So I leave the shower with the few bars that I still have left, that I still remember. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I go to his room and I'm like, I'm reciting them. He's like, wow, this guy's weird. This is a weird person.
Yeah. No, but I totally get it. Like I need to,
Yeah.
like I know I even have a like my notes app on my phone is just like integral. Immediately after I'm at the shop, I'm in my notes app and I'm like
Mm,
just trying to capture everything.
yeah.
So I can
It's so
relate.
weird,
Yeah.
but so fun at the same
Mm.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
Go
Give
for
me
it.
four essential books for someone doing creative work, in your opinion. Yeah, super on the spot here.
Okay, number one, um, Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. That one really talks about like the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, all that stuff. Um, so this is the thing. I'm not much of a reader. I'm actually an audio visual learner. Surprise, surprise. So most of the content that I pursue, I have like some podcast recommendations. I don't know if I can like sneak
Oh,
those in
no,
there.
please do.
Um, but I would say in terms of books, definitely mindset. And then, okay, I'll just share the ones that have impacted me. I don't know if this
Yeah.
is necessarily like crucial to like creativity, but these are the books that have left an impression on me that inform the way I show up to my work. The Slight Edge is another one. And this book, I love it because it talks about the power of compounding interest over time, like your efforts compounding interest over time. So The Slight Edge paired with James Clear's Atomic Habits. I think this is very good about developing some kind of creative practice and, knowing that you need to be patient with things and all of that. And then the fourth one that has had a huge impact on me is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And this one, it talks all about your upper limit. So it talks about basically like your mind, your body is sort of like a thermostat, and you have a threshold for how much happiness you can handle. And so if you exceed that threshold, that's why, have you ever realized, like, when something really good happens, then somehow you get into an argument with someone, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
something
yeah, yeah.
happens, right? And that's almost like you trying to bring yourself back to whatever you have set as your equilibrium. And unfortunately, a lot of us, our happiness threshold is really, really low. It's too low. Like, we can't handle a lot of things. And so it's about how to say, like, expand yourself and like expand your capacity to be able to receive more. So that is one that I really love. My two favorite podcasts for creativity, number one, are the Creative Pep Talk podcast with Andy J Pizza. I think it's just so incredible. It might be a bit of an acquired taste for some people. He's very like energetic and does a lot of things. There's lots of interesting audio going around, so might not be for everyone, but I mean, his insights are just out of this world. Like, I absolutely love his work. And then the second one is You Are a Storyteller by Brian McDonald and Jesse somebody. I can't remember. But I have been, because one of my goals this year is really double down on visual storytelling. And Brian McDonald he's a storytelling teacher, and he's just incredible to learn from. So I absolutely love those two podcasts. Is there a YouTube channel that I can recommend? Okay, I can't think of anything in terms of like YouTube, but yeah, those are my go-to resources.
Okay. I also, I don't read. I read, but I also don't read. I'm more of an audiobook
Yeah.
guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
I am
yeah,
an
yeah.
audiobook gal, but I'm struggling with getting audiobooks here in Malawi. I'm like hit with we can't sell that title in your country. And I'm like, let me have access to this knowledge, please. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to work that. But yeah, if I could choose, I'd definitely do audiobooks.
Audiobooks, YouTube, podcasts. Podcasts are
Yeah.
huge. Podcasts are huge
Yeah.
wells of knowledge as well. Like this one.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
humble flex. But yeah, bringing it back to, the kind of like the beginnings of, you drawing and stuff. How did you learn?
Mm-hmm.
Who taught you? What school did you go to,
The University of Google and YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. Gosh, definitely. But I know one of the key resources or key people that inspired me early on is Loish. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but yeah, she is a digital artist. I actually have her book over here, and she released a new one and I really wanted. But she was the first one I found on Instagram who was doing like little digital tutorials and things like that. But yeah, most of it has been me being on YouTube and just like watching tutorials, and things like that. Sometimes I will, there was a time where I was very heavily investing in Patreon. So if artists that I liked had a Patreon account, then I would learn from them directly through that. But yeah, it's just been years of like mostly YouTube, teaching myself and all of that. But yeah.
Oh,
That's
that's
where
hustle. So how long, if you were to start that whole process again, because I'm sure it's like an ongoing thing, like learning, but if you were to
yeah.
start it all again and do it right, let's say, how would you go about that?
That's interesting because I actually feel like that's what I'm doing right now, because I sort of had like a revamp of my creative work or my creative career. It feels like I blew everything up and I'm like starting again. Well, not really, but yeah, after like posting for a really long time on Instagram, I made the decision to like archive everything, because there was a point where I was very lost creatively. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to make, and I was doing a lot of just copying other people, into not like direct copying, like, image for image, but more so copying what I thought was working on social media and just trying to do that, but it was not meaningful to me at all. So towards the end of last year, I made the decision to just archive everything that didn't feel like it resonated with who I was. And because of all the personal growth work that I'd done, I was just like, okay, I'm starting over. I archived everything. And then I just had to take some time to really reflect on, what do I really want to do with my career? And there's a lot of things that I found that I was like, okay, I think there's like gaps in my knowledge. And so one thing I know about me 100% is that my key thing that I'm always striving for is freedom. I am the kind of person who needs a lot of freedom in my life. I do not like being told what to do. And so I
Yeah.
need to create a career for myself where I am free. And it's hard, being the one who calls the shots, but I know I need as much flexibility as possible, but I still need to be, strategic and stuff. And so I had a period where I was very unsure, but after doing, because I've done a variety of different kinds of projects. After doing my last project, which was a children's book, which I finished last year, I really was like, you know what? I'm going to commit to professionally when it comes to the thing that I'm going to use to make money. Right now, the skill set that I've developed over the years is in children's books. The expertise that I have right now is in children's books. So I know how to illustrate for children's books. And so I was like, I'm just going to focus for a year on children's books in terms of professionally. But my dream, the thing that I really want to do is more around being a content creator and being able to make a living off of my own creation. So the thing that lights me up the most is just writing my own things and creating my own stories and sharing my own images. So that's the thing that I really love the most. But I think to make a sustainable living off of that, it is important that you have an audience. And so I feel like I am starting over when it comes to like building my audience and also the creative financial aspect of it, which is like the children's book side and trying to balance the two of those things. And so coming back to your question, I'm investing now that I have more clarity. What I would have done differently back then, no, I don't think I would have done anything differently, actually. I feel like the path that I took is the one that I needed to take to get me to where I'm at right now. But having gained those insights, what I'm doing differently now is being more clear on who I am as a person and my goals and what I'm working towards, and then structuring my learning around that. Because previously, as a beginner, I would just be like, oh, I need to study still life and I need to study, fruits in a bowl. And I'm just like, I'm not interested in the freaking fruits in a bowl. Like, why am I, and so it was very boring. It wasn't fun. I didn't want to do it. But now that I have a specific goal in mind, it's very different. I can study fruits in a bowl a little bit more excitedly because I know what my end goal is. I want to be able to tell my own stories. And so it makes sense for me because if I want to be a visual storyteller all around, that means I need to have competency in a lot of things. So it's a little bit harder, but I know that my skills need to be a little bit more broad and I need to be comfortable drawing a variety of things. But those things are things that interest me. So generally, for example, I'm more interested in nature and things like that than cities and buildings. So I am more inclined to draw women in like nature or more natural landscapes or people in natural landscapes or things like that. And so I will focus my study more in the area of my interest than in cities and, all these different things because I don't particularly enjoy drawing cities that much, but I'm still kind of learning it, but it's not like a priority. So the first thing that like I said, I'm doing differently is really just having those goals and knowing what I want to achieve and what I want to do. And then from there, structuring what I need to learn. So I'm investing a little bit more in my learning. I signed up for this program. It's called SVS Learn, and it's the Society of Visual Storytellers. And so it's like a monthly subscription, but they have a bunch of like videos and tutorials and lessons on there. They actually have a curriculum that's step by step on how you can tell stories, and it's geared towards children's book mainly, but anybody who wants to tell stories visually. So I'm investing a little bit more in that and just trying to create a more structure around like my learning and all of that. So I'm still a work in progress, but yeah, that's how I'm kind of approaching it a little bit more differently. I feel like because I have a clearer goal, then my learning is more directed. And so if anything, if it was a piece of advice that I would give, it would be for people to have a goal in mind of what they're working towards. And that goal is going to inform where then you need to learn, because that will tell you where the gaps in your knowledge are.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You caught me. I need your help. Okay. I need you to
Okay.
convince me that investing in education and your development is important, because you talked about like studying your people who inspired you through their Patreon and like paying for that. You talked about being part of this society, which is money, more money. And you know, in my heart of hearts, I know the importance that there's stuff that you can get on YouTube and learn free and do all of that stuff, but then there's other things that are just, I don't know, a bit more refined and more focused when you pay for it, and it's a complete service rather than like a scrambled thing. So help me, because I refuse to listen.
Bro, I'm not here to convince you, actually, because I do not believe that. I am not like, don't go breaking the bank for the sake of investing your skills, you know, and stuff like that. That's the thing, though. These investments I'm making after about like a couple of years. Like, if you're gonna put money down, I think it's good. Like, but I don't necessarily buy into this idea of like, you know, you prove your seriousness by putting money down, because that's not how it works for me. If I am not, I can pay thousands of dollars for something, but if I'm not interested in that thing, it will literally just go down the drain. So I don't think it's necessarily wise even to put money down before you are sure. I say this carefully. I feel like everyone has a responsibility to kind of assess where they are and what they need, and the resources that they have and what they can pour into. I 100% believe in investing yourself. But the only thing, but I feel it's important to understand that that you don't just have money to invest. What you also have is energy. What you also have is focus. And time, you know, depending on who you are. If you're unmarried, it's, you know, all that stuff, you have more time to invest than other people. So if somebody is young, and they're like, okay, where should I'm like, don't go paying for things necessarily. Like, you can also invest time. And so I know a lot of these programs can help you save time. So if you have the resources to invest in that, and you've done your research around it, and you feel like it's going to be a worthwhile investment to you, like I said, in terms of your goals, because don't just be throwing money around to things because somebody says this is the best program. You need to know yourself. So when you know yourself, you know your goals, and then you assess your resources and what you have available. And then you can channel those things. So again, it's not just your money that you have, it's your time, your energy. And you have to also be thinking seriously about how you are allocating your time and your energy and your money as well. And so, there is that understanding of like, if you are relying only on free content, then that is taking up time in terms of having to find and piece together all these different things. But I don't think that's necessarily a disadvantage, because for me, I'm moving away from this idea that I need to rush. Because I'm not in a rush, I'm more willing to take my time and find the things that are interesting to me. So I knew about SVS Learn for a very, very long time, and I've explored different things and all that time. But it's only this year that I made the decision to like invest in it, because I know that I want to focus on like children's books in the year. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to have to like piece together all these things in terms of children's book. I want to learn from people who actually know what they're doing right now. And I have the resources to invest in this. So I'm going to do that. But I'm not going to sit here and just tell everybody to go and, put your money where your whatever. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm really not. I'm like, be smart. I'm just like, can we be smart about these things? So I think it's important to assess yourself first and then see where you can channel your resources. So I don't know if that's
no, thank you. No, that's actually so helpful.
Probably.
It's actually so helpful, because it's like, it sounds like you're saying that there's more or less like a sliding scale of like resources versus requirements. And if you have, let's say, less time, then it's more beneficial to use your money to get the thing that'll fast track you. And also like knowing the direction that you actually want to go, and what you're capable of. So that's pretty. No, that's wow.
I think you said it better than I did.
No, you delivered it amazingly. I just summarized it. because this
Yeah,
was not something
no,
that I thought of,
great
right?
job.
This
Yeah.
is something that I'm also kind of like juggling, like how. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you put it like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
no,
I think for us wanderers as well, when we are like moving around, like it can add up if you're like gonna pay for everything. Like, oh, I want to pay for a graphic design course, and I want to pay for this, and I'm gonna pay, and I'm just like, especially if you're a wanderer, I wouldn't be rushing to just be putting the money down. Like, you have other things, assess, really take time. When something genuinely lights you up and you're happy to do it, then go ahead and do it. But yeah.
mm, oh, this is gold. This is real gold. So thank you.
This is
Um,
fun.
yeah. So okay, you draw, and you're doing work and all of this stuff. But how often do you draw for yourself? How often is it only just for Instagram when you're picking up the pen stylus?
I've had to flip my mindset a little bit, because before I'm like, oh, I need to draw this for Instagram, and you can just imagine the pressure when you're trying to draw for Instagram. Like, no, so I have to think of it of like every drawing that I do for myself now. Like, it's for me. So most of my personal work that you see on Instagram, that was for me first. And then I am sharing it with the world. It's kind of like, hey, look what I made. Mom, Dad, look. Yeah, so it's more of that thing. When I think about I need to do this for Instagram, it is difficult, but because I do also understand the power of consistency and things like that, I do um, try and keep. I'm working on getting a schedule together and working more towards a schedule, which is interesting. I've had to work on my relationship with structure a lot because I'm like, oh no, like I said, I'm a freedom person. I was like, I want to be free. And so I used to think that, structure was the enemy. I was like, no, I don't want to be tied down. But I'm actually learning that I actually thrive off of structure, but the structure needs to be something that I do determine more and less for myself. Like, it's flexible enough for me. I actually wrote this down in my note, one of those notes app moments where basically I was talking about like, I don't want, like, I'm like water. And so structure that's like a container and trying to confine me into one specific place is not good for me. But I need structure that's more like the banks of a river. So it's like, this is your boundary. And that again also helps me focus. So, the goals and things like that, those are like my boundaries, and like it's helping me focus, but I'm still allowed to flow and move as I want to, that stuff, versus being in a container in a confined place. That's the kind of thing that I really push against. So it's not structure itself that's the enemy. In fact, you're going to learn this if you hear the storytelling podcast. Structure is at the core of everything. And so I find that it's really important for me to have like this sense of structure, because that's the building upon which that I build everything. But there can be some flexibility with that. And I think I rambled. I went on a tangent because I forgot your question.
I forgot my question, but
What
it's
did you
perfect. No, you answered the question, and then
ask? Did I answer the
you
question?
actually you
Okay.
answered it perfectly fine. But that's
Yeah,
so
I
interesting.
followed another tangent.
Yeah, no, that's actually such an amazing image that you put into my head, that the idea of like the flowing river being the constraint, not like the
Yeah,
container. That's so
yeah,
genius. I think I'm also at that stage where I want my freedom. Maybe it's a wanderer
yes,
thing, maybe it's a creative thing, I don't know, but like I'll
yeah,
do this is I know what I'm doing, and
yes,
I'll
yeah,
whatever. So
yeah.
that's actually so genius. I'll look into that. How do you like? What
Mm,
tips would you give me in like
mhm,
creating flexible constraints for yourself?
mm, mhm. Um, I would say, yeah, I guess I always come back to yourself and knowing yourself and the kind of person that you are. And then knowing the kind of system that would work best for you. So a lot of people swear by like, traditional and physical planners, but the reason why I don't necessarily like physical planners is, okay, this is where the perfectionism thing in me was like, when I cross things out, I'm like, no, so I prefer digital kind of methods of planning because I can move things around, and stuff like that. And so for me, I like to um, basically, because I know what I'm working towards, I'm very clear on my goals. Then what I like to do, I use Notion as well a lot. Like Notion
Same.
is big. Okay, it is so I love it also because there is that flexibility around it as well, and I can create my own systems, and so that's really cool. So I have basically this. So yeah, basically it's about knowing what it is that you want, and then looking at the time that you have available to work on the things that you want to work on. And so when at the time when I was a lawyer, I would wake up a little bit earlier and I would do some work like an hour in the morning. And then in that time, I wasn't super rigid in terms of like, oh, I have to do this. I'd like to give myself a menu almost of things that I have to like I need to get done. So I'm like, okay, these are the current projects that I'm working on. So I don't set down necessarily. Actually, a lot of people plan the night before, and I've tried that, but I find my moods change so much. Like I can be like the night before, I'm like, I want to do this. And then I wake up, I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. And so I like to step into the day and then tune into myself and like how I'm feeling and be like, okay, Vanessa, what are you feeling? This is the menu of things. This is what we're working on. This is where we're going, what we're working towards. What would you like to work on today? And so it's still kind of giving me an illusion of like, not like, I don't like to use the word illusion, but like an idea of freedom, like, oh, I have the freedom to choose what I want to work on. Yeah, because so there's this interesting test called the four what is it? The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. And so you have different kinds. And so there you have the obligers, the upholders, the questioners, and the rebels. And this is basically how you deal with expectations. And so upholders are people who can handle external expectations and internal expectations very well. So if there's an external deadline, they can meet it. And if they set a goal for themselves, they can meet it. Obligers are people who do well with external deadlines, but they don't do well with internal deadlines. And so these are the people who need a lot of accountability. So they are the ones who, there's a deadline at work, or people, or, those people who need group accountability to exercise, those kind of people. If they set a goal for themselves, though, they struggle with that. They're like, I'm going to get to it later. I don't want to do that. So they struggle with internal expectations. And then you have the questioners who are very good with their internal expectations, but they push against external expectations unless it makes sense to them. So they're very good with their own goals and their visions. And they're like, hey, I can do this. Yeah. And then if you're putting an expectation on them, like you have to do this in this way, they'll be like, why? Make it make sense. So those are the questioners. The rebels are the ones who do not do well with any kind of expectations. Okay, so they push against external expectations and they push against internal expectations. And so they're the kinds who are like, maybe they're like, if you're like, oh, they wanted to clean the room, and this is me. I'm like, oh, I want to clean my room, and then my mom is like, you have to clean your room. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm like, no,
Oh yeah,
I don't want to. So you push against.
You
it's
telling
like
me?
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
so now I have to do it. No, anything, which is why with myself, I have just obliterated the word have to, because I am a rebel. And I was surprised. I didn't think I was. I thought I'd be like a questioner or an obliger, but I'm actually a rebel. And so I don't do well with every time, anytime somebody's like, you have to do this, I'm like, why do I like, no, well, I don't want to do that. And even if it's me, I'm like, Vanessa, you have to do it. I'm like, no, why do I got to do that? So I have to be mindful of how I frame things and just be like, okay, what would you like to do? Okay, this is what we get to do today. And I think people like rebels are very driven by meaning, the meaning of things. Like it needs to be important to them. It needs to matter. It needs to feel like they're contributing something positively to themselves and to the world. And so I wake up every day and I'm like, this is what we get to do. What would you like to do? That kind of thing, and be like, oh, okay, I'd like to do this. And always framing it in terms of like where I'm trying to go and being like, okay, if we do this thing, which is not necessarily fun, but this is getting us closer to where we ultimately want to be. And that's how I have to learn how to motivate myself. And so it's things like that. I think self-awareness is key. So you need to know yourself and your tendencies and how you work. And then you need to kind of figure out how to structure your day. I don't think having like an endless to-do list of things is super helpful, because if you're somebody who can get overwhelmed very easily, so you just want to have like really high level things that push the needle forward, and yeah, basically keep it limited. I don't know if this helps.
Oh, it
I feel like
does.
it's a little bit all over there, but
No,
yeah,
I
that's how
love
I
it when you elaborate.
approach.
The elaboration is
Yeah.
so useful. I think there was one thing that you touched on that was super important, I think, is
Mm-hmm.
the mind shift thing, the mindset shift between I have to and I get to. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that would change the game for a lot of people to see like this is
yeah,
I have the opportunity to, so on and so
yeah.
forth, contribute towards this goal of mine or to this cause or whatever. I also feel like I'm a rebel. I'm probably because you were saying, I was like, maybe I'm a questioner. That's like, no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. That you telling me
yeah.
what to do. Okay, I was gonna do
You're
it,
like, are you
but
trying
now
to
that you've
tell
said
me?
it,
Oh,
I'm done.
yeah.
I'm gonna sit here and watch
Yeah,
TV. That's so cool.
yeah.
I'm gonna look into that. Is it a book or is it a study?
Yeah, it's a quiz you can take online as well.
Okay,
So you can just look up the Four Tendencies
okay.
by Gretchen Rubin. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Mm-hmm.
In one of your YouTube videos, you were talking about inspiration and kind of like where
Mm-hmm.
and how it feels and all that whole situation, which you guys should check
Mm-hmm.
out. It's very, very wise. And the drawings are
Oh,
amazing. Um,
thank you.
but you also mentioned that you get inspiration from like Pinterest, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Google, and stuff like that. What
Yeah.
what do you search? Like what do you put in when you're looking for inspiration? I know Pinterest you could more or less just like scroll and find it, or
Yeah,
Instagram
yeah,
similar,
because it
but
knows you now. Yeah,
Pinterest knows you. Pinterest is a
it's like,
stalker.
you're gonna like this and you're gonna like that. And you're
Oh
like,
my
yeah,
gosh.
I do.
Yo, it's crazy. But
Algorithms are a little bit scary, not gonna lie.
it is.
Yeah, yeah.
But what is it that you punch in, or is it just like whatever comes to you comes to you?
Yeah, so usually I will have if I don't know, absolutely, I'm just like completely drawing a blank on what I want to do. I start with Pinterest because again, it knows me. So it's throwing up things that are new, but I haven't necessarily like seen before and it's similar, so that might spark an idea. But because I've been on there for so long, I have a board with of different things. So I have a board, for example, with faces, and then I have one that has like interesting pictures, people doing interesting things, maybe wearing interesting outfits, all kinds of different things. And so I just have this like basically a mini library of things that I'm interested in that I can kind of like go through and then sparks different ideas. At this point, I can just look at my board and I can see like there might be two pins that are like far, like almost close together, but very different. And then I somehow see a way to, put those two together. So if I'm really drawing a blank, I start from Pinterest because I've been curating it for a very long time. So I get interesting ideas from there. But if I already have an image of something that I want to create, like maybe I was inspired by something I heard or something that I saw, there's a piece that I still want to do, but I saw this guy. He was standing by the side of the road and he was chatting with his friend, but he had this backpack and it was a
Mm.
fluffy yellow duck. And it was one of these vendors, And I was like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what? It was so interesting and so weird. I was just like, that is so funny. And I literally had this image in my head of like, I imagined, and then I write this whole story in my mind of like, oh, okay, imagine if it was like a father, because that's interesting, you see a
Yeah.
sturdy black man, but he has like this fluffy little thing. And I was like, that's such an interesting image. And so I just imagined like, oh, maybe he's a dad. And then I imagined him like carrying a little child. And then, maybe the child is reaching for the toy. And so in that instance, I have like maybe an image of, something I want to create based off of something that again, inspiration hitting you from anywhere. And then I will maybe look at, so when I have that image, I was like, okay, I'll need references for maybe a dad holding a little child. So I will look for, that's something I will punch into Google, like dad holding a little child, or, all these different things. So yeah, that's how it comes about. But maybe if I don't have an idea, then maybe I don't have an idea, but that's kind of how I search for things. So maybe I
Yeah.
will say girl in a field of flowers, or someone walking down with the beach in the background, or things like that. So that's how I would search on Google for references, and then just gather as many as I can to make something interesting, to find interesting combinations between those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens on the days when you can't find inspiration?
We leave it alone.
Yeah.
We leave it alone. But it's very interesting actually, because now that you're mentioning it, I'm like, those days don't really come anymore. I think because is like waiting for inspiration, and this is something you'll see like people share this, and I'm still thinking about this a lot, but waiting for inspiration is fine if you want art to be your hobby. If it's a hobby, and if then you can wait to see the guy with the rubber duck, like fluffy duck thing, and wow, that's interesting, I'm gonna draw that, and wait for the inspiration to hit you, right? But if you want to be a professional, then you have to kind of de-romanticize creativity and art a little bit. And I think a lot of artists and creatives are very like precious about like, no, but it's this magical process that, if you want to be a professional, you want to do this for real, then you got to let go of that and realize that this is a skill. And me being like, oh, I can't draw anything because I don't have any idea, is like me being like, oh, I can't drive today because I don't feel like it. I'm like, well, yeah, if I really don't feel like it, I don't have to drive. But if my fridge is empty and I need to go buy groceries, then I'm going to get in that car and I'm going to go and I'm going to drive. It's a skill set thing. And so I feel like even learning how to generate ideas is a skill in and of itself. Like I said, now I understand how to use Pinterest and things like that. And that's another thing. I think I did mention this in the video, that you don't start with the blank page ever. And so because I've amassed this, now that I understand myself, I know generally what I like to draw and what I like to create, but I also understand how to challenge myself. I do have a lot to pull from most of the time. So when I sit down to draw something, it's almost like I'm training myself to be creative on demand, which is a really important skill to have if you want to do this professionally. You can't sit there and be like, oh my gosh, there's that quote, I don't know who said it, but they're like, somebody asked them, do you draw when you're inspired? And they're like, yeah, no, I draw only when I'm inspired. I'm just fortunate that inspiration comes every day at 8 a.m.
Oh, wow.
So it's basically that thing of like, you have a designated place to sit down, you sit down and you get to work like everybody else. And it's just that, yeah, what you get to do is a little bit more fun. But I think creatives feel resistance to treating it that way because they feel like it's somehow cheapening the experience, and all that stuff. But what I've actually found is when you can train yourself to create, regardless of whether you feel inspired or feel motivated, you will find that your brain actually develops the habit of creating on, like, when you ask it, I need an idea, it will be more readily willing to do that for you. It's like a muscle. Creativity really is a muscle. And when you don't use it, it atrophies. And so like anything, like, if you're in the gym and you're like, pumping, and I'm going to just embarrass myself here. If I can say this analogy, I don't know gym things, but like you're in the gym and you're trying to get stronger and you have, a specific weight level, and then and then you don't use those weights for like a really long time. When you come back to it's really, really difficult to try and like get back into it. But the more that you exercise that muscle, the easier that it is over time. That muscle, your body understands that, dang, we keep using our biceps. I guess we need to get stronger, right? So when you see creativity as that, when you consistently make a habit of asking yourself to come up with ideas, your mind will see that, oh, coming up with ideas is something that we are asked to do all the time now, and it learns how to do that. It learns how to look for interesting things in your life. It learns how to, pull your attention to different things. And so that's something that helps me now. I rely less and less on like being inspired and motivated, and more I'm able to create just a little bit more. It's not perfect. I really do still have days where I can go like 3 days without drawing, because that's more of a I'm not in the mood thing than it's a I don't have any ideas kind of thing.
Yeah. That's I'm in my mind just writing notes. The idea, I think there is this like there's a mysticism behind creativity, assuming that like only the select few, the special guys are the ones that have it. But like you said, creativity is a skill. You can learn it, develop it, grow it, stretch it, all of that.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's I think if more people thought of it like that, I think we'd be in a better place, because I look at the world and okay, my mom works at a bank, and during COVID, she's working from home, so the Zoom meetings are happening, and I'm in earshot, and I'm listening, and I'm like, y'all, you got to do better. Like you can do like it's such old thinking, and it's like if you were to literally just insert someone creative, if you were to have someone in there and say, okay, guys, we can do this differently. Like we don't have to follow the procedure and whatever. We should actually try and innovate for once.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I wanted to know, you said when I was a lawyer. So please excite me. What does that mean?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not a lawyer anymore.
What do you do?
Yeah, since 2020.
Yes.
What do I do?
Yeah.
I do this.
This is your day job.
More or less. Yeah. More the freelancing side of things. Yeah.
I'm so happy for you. You're living the dream.
Thank you.
I think for a lot of us, there is this this is not a real job mentality, 100%. Which I think you also had when you were growing up. I'm sure it was worse, way worse back in the day. At least now, these lucky kids, oh man, they're growing up in a new age. You can do anything you want. My brother is doing film school, right? Which would have been an impossibility if it were me back then.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. Obviously, he also had to fight tooth and nail to get
that is
there.
So cool though.
Yeah,
that's another thing I'm really interested in, because I'm all about visual storytelling. I think film is cool, and my sister actually did film and media. She's a graphic designer and works in media and comms, but her major is film and media.
Wow.
So yeah,
and she's done?
I think film is Yeah. She's working at a NGO now here.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
No, but I get it. I think that's part of the reason also why I was hesitant to like say, because she already knew she wanted to do graphic design and stuff like that, and it was kind of like, oh, we don't really know what that is, so and then I was like, I also want to be an artist, and I was like, nah.
I hear you.
So I totally get what you're saying as well.
Yeah. How did you make the transition from, okay, actually let's rewind. You were doing law, you're a lawyer and all that. How were you balancing day job and creative work?
Not very well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said earlier, I would just try to wake up a little bit earlier, do my drawing and my illustrating before, maybe if I had time. There were times where I'd take my tablet to work, and over my lunch break, I'd be, and then I would then in the evenings also just be working on my craft as much as I could, like trying to develop my skills and all that stuff. So for context, my father is a lawyer, so he has a law firm. So I was working with him. Now we are very blessed in my family in that my parents were pretty supportive. So unfortunately, my mom passed away back in 2019, and that's actually a key part of the story, actually. So my parents have never put pressure on us to be this or be that. And my dad has always known that I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I couldn't offer him an option of what I actually wanted to do. So he's like, you need a plan, right? And so you need to do something. And so that's why, like, he basically encouraged me to do law until I figured out what I really wanted to do. Um, and so with that, I then I was doing law. I was admitted in the bar early 2019. I was admitted in March, and then my mother passed away in April, actually. So she just got to see me be admitted. And so after she passed away, went through that year. And then I was just like, oh, the turn of the decade, like 2020 is going to be my year. And we all know what happened in that year. And so that was a wake up call for me to be like, dang, life is really short, like really short. And it's too short to not be doing what you most want to do. And so there's this one YouTuber I follow that I really love. Her name is Eileen from Lavendier. And she said she got advice from her business mentor, like she was doing business school. And her mentor said, take your biggest risks whilst you are young. So I'm not as young, but I still am in a position where I don't have a lot of responsibilities in the traditional sense. I don't have a family or all those different things. So I have the flexibility to do this. And so in 2020 was when I was like, I really just want to give this a go and just go all in and figure out ways to make this work. And so, yeah, I think that's really how I came to that decision of like, I'm going to give this a go. And you know what, if it doesn't work out, I guess I could fall back on this. But then I have my own different thoughts about like fallbacks and things. And I think that's a thing that would like take a lot to get into because I don't believe in this thing of like fallback anymore. It's like valid in this day and age.
Ooh,
I
okay.
believe it's more, yeah. Tussle, ruffle the feathers, but I don't believe in this idea of like we need a fall. I think you do need a monetizable skill, but people don't understand that the world is changing and those skills are different. It's not just law. And I think we go to that because people will always need lawyers, people will always need doctors, people will always need people to build their buildings. So, the engineers and stuff like that. It makes sense. People need help with their money, the accountants. It makes a lot of sense. But the world is changing. And actually, there's something now, literally, there's what we call this the creator economy, where you have the content creators and things like that. There's an entire economy dedicated to creativity, and it's becoming a $1 billion economy. And so now I believe that this is the age of actually investing in your interests and building skills around your areas of interest. So what I realize now, if you ask me, so what's your fallback position? My fallback position isn't law anymore. It's actually children's books. I've built up skills in children's books. So now what I most want to do, though, isn't necessarily be a children's book illustrator for the rest of my life. I want to create the things that I want to create. I want to make the things that I want to make. I actually love film and video, and that's why I'm getting into YouTube, and I want to do all these different things. But my fallback, when I'm in I need to start making money, I'm not going to go to the legal offices and be knocking anymore. I'm like, no, my first thing is I need to find some freelance children's book illustration clients. And that is a better bet because I asked myself, there was a point, I was like, Vanessa, do you want to keep working as a lawyer, or do you want to figure out how to make money as an artist, be in the realm of the thing that you most want to do, and then from there continue working your way up until eventually you're able to sustain yourself of purely your own creativity? I'm not there yet. And so I was like, you know what, I'd rather be drawing. I literally had this meeting with myself. I was like, I would rather be drawing. And so now that I've built areas and skill sets and competency in children's book, I don't even see law as a fallback. If I tell this to people, if Vanessa is back in the law offices, then you know that it's really, 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 really bad. But now I'm just like, actually, it's about investing in skills in the areas of my interest. So what I'm doing now is I'm scoping the landscape and I'm like, okay, I have a monetizable skill now, children's books. I can always get work around children's books. Something else that I'm interested, film, videography and stuff, editing. Really enjoy editing, actually. People hate it, but I actually really like it. So I'm building up my skill sets in that. And so because of that, now because it's the age of video content is driving, then I was like, I have another skill that I can market myself around. I've also done a little bit of stuff around graphic design and stuff like that. That is also a monetizable skill in this day and age. So I feel like I really want people to expand their minds when they come up to backup plans and skills to
Mm,
fall back on. It's not just the traditional things. We actually
mm,
can monetize around the areas of our interests. And that's probably more sustainable because there are better chances of us actually enjoying what we're doing and producing better work than just all of that. But
mm.
yeah, I talk a lot, man.
I
Long-winded
love it.
answers.
I love it. I need more people like you because it's different. I always give this example of TikTok has, I'm pretty sure
Mm,
it's same with Twitch, but TikTok has lives, right? And
yeah,
I was scrolling through it and I'd find people who are sleeping, and then behind them there's like a chart of different sounds, different alarms, right? So on TikTok they give, you can donate, right? I think they're called gifts or something. So they're
yeah,
$5 to like lots of money. So this person is sleeping, and then behind them is a chart of different sounds, and
yeah.
each sound is allocated to a gift. So the
Oh,
smaller gift is like, like a little alarm, little chime, and then like the
yeah.
largest gift is like full on police sirens to wake him up. He's
Oh,
he's and people in the chat are just sending him money to wake him up. He's making
whoa,
money
that's bad. I didn't know
while
that. That
he
is
sleeps.
insane.
I
Yeah,
saw this and I'm like, you cannot tell me to do 5 years of school, but this man's
yeah. No,
here is sleeping and making money.
sleeping and making money. Literally, this is reinventing the make money while you sleep.
Dude,
Like taking it through the streets, man.
I was like,
Remember the days when
uh,
you'd be playing video games and you're like,
mm,
when are you gonna do that? You can't play video games and make
yeah,
money. Have you seen these gamers?
dude,
Have you seen these
dude.
gamers? You can't tell, we can't tell, we don't have the luxury of that thing
Oh
anymore. Like we can't
no.
be to our kids when we have them,
Mm,
we can't be, you can't be sitting around making, we're like,
mm,
dang, they actually can
they
though.
are there's stadiums being filled with like people coming to watch games. It's so crazy how everything has changed.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
it's I think it's a tough thing for parents as well. Like, of course, I'm very
yeah.
rebellious, but I also have to sit back and be like, okay, it must be really tough because these guys grew up in an age where this is all that makes sense. You go to school,
100%.
you get a job, or you go to school, do an internship, you get a job, and then you stick there, you save money, maybe you start farming, or you start, you get a little
On
something
this
going
side,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, you have kids and blah
But you
blah.
stay in the job.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You climb the ladder and all of this stuff, and suddenly these kids are coming out saying, "No, I'm doing TikTok,
yeah,
I'm doing YouTube and all of this stuff," and it's like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
relax.
Definitely. And this is the thing that I think about a lot, even for us. Like this is the thing, even when people look down on generations, I really am like, because first of all, people are like, oh, Gen Z or the generation ahead of us looking down on millennials and just quitting all the time, all that stuff. And I'm like, what people of the other generation need to understand is that they actually built this world for us, okay? And we need to understand, even for us, that we are building a world for our kids that we have not experienced. And so a lot of parents these days are like, oh, kids are so rebellious nowadays. They don't listen. And I'm like, why should they listen to you, first of all? Like, I feel like, not like okay, this is a rebel talk, but I'm like, not in a be disrespectful to your parents, but to understand that they are living in a world that you didn't. So when they are questioning your authority to guide them through that world, they should question, like, are you really the best person to tell me how to navigate a world with social media, which I've known all my life, when you didn't even grow up with that, and so it makes sense. And this is something I think about as well, where I think parents these days, our only strategy is like, I'm just going to tell them, you need to listen to me. And I'm just like, no, we need to learn how to relate to one another. I believe there are time and tested principles that help you navigate through life. And we need to understand what those are so that we can pass that down to our kids. But we also need to understand that the world that our kids are going to grow up in is not the world that we grew up in. And so when they are responding differently than maybe we would, we need to know that, yeah, they're going through different things than we did. And then that's when you employ your creativity. The future is for the creative thinkers to be like, okay, how can I take what I've, experienced from the past? How can I pull all of that in to the present moment to help guide these people to where they want to go, instead of just being like writing off entire generations? Try and meet them where they are and be like, look, I don't know what it's like to grow up in a world of, social media and pressure on that, but I do know what it's like to compare myself to someone else. And this is what I have done to overcome that. And this is why it's important that you don't do that. Here's how you can translate that to social media. Or I know what it's like to be boundaryless. And so these are the things, this is why it's important for you to have boundaries instead of just, I don't know, forcing things. We have to get creative in the way we even parent, all these different things. The future is for the creative thinkers, the people who are able to make these interesting connections instead of being so stuck on this is the way things have been, therefore this is how they must be moving forward. Life does not work like that.
Preaching to the choir, man. Preaching to the choir. Someone. Yeah. It's hard to grasp, but I think it's an important thing that we need to think about, and it does make sense. Like you've toiled and built and done all this stuff. You've acquired all this money. You've put us through school. Of course, you're making the life easier for us. Of course, we're not going to struggle. Like this is a testament to how much work. Same
challenges.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. So we've talked a lot about, kind of like the things that you've had to learn and develop and you've gotten good at, but what is it that you are still terrible at?
Sports. No, I'm just kidding. In terms of like my artistic skills or just in general?
I'd say both.
In terms of running a business.
Yeah.
I think my artistic skills, I'm actually really bad at the fundamentals. Like I am having to go back and work on like my figure drawing and my perspective things and, all that boring stuff. But because I've gained more insight and I understand the importance of structure now, I'm more intentional about learning it. So I'm definitely still terrible at the fundamentals, and I spend a lot of time trying to get the structure of a drawing right, which is why I'm like, we need to learn things properly the first time. But yeah, so in terms of skill set, I think the fundamentals are where I'm lagging. And then when it comes to like managing my business and things like that, I'm a lot better at managing my mind. So that definitely makes it easier. I can manage my mind, I can manage my emotions much better, but I do definitely need to work on managing my time and my energy. So when you work for yourself, like you're fully responsible for everything, and it's so easy. Like when I get into I don't feel like it, then nothing literally gets done. So what I have to do is I've had to develop a very good relationship with myself, a healthy relationship with myself, lots of self-compassion. So when I find myself not working when I'm supposed to be working, I actually now have this strategy. I actually try and use parenting techniques on myself. It's like parenting yourself, because we have to reparent and recorrect a lot of these things. But what I do is I let myself go through the motions. I will watch the Netflix, I will do the things. And then after that, I'll be like, okay, Vanessa, how do you feel? You had this that you wanted to do, and then you chose not to do it. You made a decision. How did that decision pan out for? Are you happy with the results? Because sometimes it can be hard to know when you actually need to rest and when you're just putting stuff off. And sometimes you just have to let yourself do the behaviors that you're like, oh, this is not ideal. But then instead of just being like, oh, why do I always do this and beating yourself up, I think it's important. I come in and I ask myself, so how was that? When you spend an entire afternoon and evening on Netflix, whatever, instead of doing the work that you were supposed to be doing, how do you feel? And then that is allowing me to be honest, to just be like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I don't feel great. So the next time it's kind of like reminding myself, I'm not trying to force myself into change. I'm not trying to shame myself into change, but it's like a natural progression where I'm teaching myself on a practical level that actually it's not, I think I'm resting, but it's not actually rest to put off work. It's actually going to give me more peace of mind to get the work done than it does to just like procrastinate it because I'm just in my feelings or whatever. So I have to learn that balance. I'm learning how to be more intentional with my time and yeah, just guide myself through, coach myself through whenever I'm struggling. So
Yeah. How
yeah.
long has this process been going on? Like when did it click for you? When did it
Um,
happen?
I started my like, do you mean the personal growth journey and like
Yeah,
all of
specifically
that
like
stuff?
yeah, the reparenting and like okay, this is how you
Yeah,
want to rest. Fine, yeah, that
yeah. I would say it started, I think I started intensely in my personal growth, coaching myself, learning to relate to myself in a healthy way in 2018. Um, but in 2020, when I really decided to go like all in on my business, like I said, business is a self-development tool. So that's when all the stuff really started coming up. And so that's when I was like, I need to reparent, I need to correct some of this thinking because this thinking is really holding me back. So in 2020 is really when I began the work of being the person I most needed at the time. So yeah, really just learning how to support myself and all that stuff. So I say I've been doubling down since about 2020. And I think I would say it's only towards the end of last year where I feel like I'm getting into like a really nice, healthy flow. Actually, no, it didn't even take that long because when it comes to harsh self-criticism, I did struggle with a lot of self-loathing in the past, and all that stuff. It was very, very intense. But I have like when I like that thing when you do something wrong, like, oh, Vanessa, you're so stupid and stuff like that hasn't happened. And I think it happened once about a couple weeks ago where I did something, I made a mistake and I was very harsh towards myself. And I was like, I do not talk to myself like that, that type of thing. Like I was like, where is that coming from? It was actually strange to me. So yeah, I think it's been a process of developing a very healthier way of speaking to myself. And so now it's more normal. Like I don't criticize myself or like I'm super harsh with myself. I'm still, if I don't do something well, I can be honest with myself. I've built that trust with myself. But yeah, it's taken about 2-ish years of like steady focused work.
yeah. What was the
Yeah.
mistake that you made?
Huh?
What was yeah?
Y'all, I can't even remember it. I think it wasn't even that big of a deal. What was it? I like literally that's how like
Mm,
non-consequential it was. Like I can't even remember. It may have been like not submitting something on time when I said I would. I don't know.
mm,
I
mm.
don't know. It may have been something like that, but yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. I was supposed to ask this. So, what work? So, you said you do the kids' books, you do freelance work, and you named a bunch of other stuff. But what is it that actually brings you money to the table? Like, yeah, on a
Right now
regular
it's
basis.
it's it's the children's books. Um and a project sprinkled in here and there, which is outside of that. But again, because I said I'm kind of revamping my creative career, I'm doubling down on children's books and trying to build a portfolio. And I even joined the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators, and things like that. So I would say my biggest source of income as it comes right now, and what I want to focus on is children's books because I think yeah, there's just a little bit more money in that regard.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So,
mostly it's children's books.
is it royalties based or the money?
No, so yeah, I'm not there yet.
Okay.
Royalties, but it's basically advances. So how it works is if you are working with a publisher, you will get an advance on royalties. And then when the book makes enough sales to cover the advance, only then will you begin to start making royalties. And a lot of books don't actually make enough sales to cover that advance. So it's usually like a upfront payment. Um, so that's usually how it works. But now that I'm entering the world of children's books and I work quite a bit with self-published authors, I'm like, this is not making sense. Why don't I just write my own books and like build from there? So actually, one of my key strategies for this year is to get into writing and publishing my own children's books as well, because then I have full control over that income. So that's a project that I'm working on. I don't if I don't have work coming in, I always have some kind of project, a personal project that I am working towards that could potentially bring in more work over time. And I feel like working on my own children's book is a good source of passive income eventually for me. So it's a lot of work up front. I'm also trying to find more passive income streams that I can invest in. So it's lots of upfront work, but then they can bring me things over time because I definitely do not want to be depending only on freelance work because it is unstable and it can be inconsistent at
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that is the fear that a lot of people have and a lot of parents have. It's like, if I'm doing freelance, it's like this thing of feast and famine, and like, how do we, manage all
Yeah.
of that, keep the lights? How do you
Yeah.
keep the lights on? These are the questions people, I'm sure. Has anybody ever asked you how? How? Yeah.
Not really.
Really? I need to live in your
Not
community,
really.
man. I know
Uh,
I'd be getting asked that.
no, I okay. Also, I think because I'm a bit isolated,
Mm-mm.
not that so I like I said, not a lot of people understand what I'm doing. So I'm not surrounded per se. I'm very again, I'm mindful of my energy. I'm mindful of who I talk to. So I don't insert myself in spaces where people are gonna be, so what are you doing? And where are you at? Because I'm like, I'm still figuring it out myself. And people want like the answers. But yeah, basically it really is my biggest source of traffic right now is social media. So I get a lot of my inquiries through social media, but I am learning more direct forms of marketing. So I'm learning how to pitch to like publishing houses and stuff like that. And so I think it's really that like driving traffic. So I'm working on building my social media presence as well, so I can drive more traffic. But more so if you're a freelancer and you need to put money on the table as quickly as possible, you need to kind of learn how to be more direct and reach out to people and stuff like that. And so right now I'm not in the direct outreach phase, but I'm more in my portfolio building phase. So right now I'm kind of building a portfolio, and then from there I want to be able to send that out to publishers because I've been working with self-publishers and their budgets are quite low. So I'm trying to build a portfolio that can get me just better paying clients and jobs. And so I'm investing time in that because, like I said, money's not the only thing. So I'm investing time into building a portfolio because that could end up making me more money if I get better paying projects.
Okay.
So yeah.
Congrats. That sounds like a whole struggle. So did you have like a nest egg little money saved up? And so this is
Yeah.
from the law and I
Yeah.
guess past work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Definitely. So yeah, and I do get a bit of support, some support from. This is gonna sound a bit like I don't know. No, it's not. I'm not embarrassed about it at all. But I do get support from my dad right now. He also pitches in, here and there. So um, I was heavily dependent on his. Like I'm saying, I don't have a typical African dad. I'm very grateful. So he was really helping me out a lot. When I was working for him, um, he was giving me a salary. And then when I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, he was like, okay, I'm going to support you up until that salary. So I'm going to match that in terms of like support until you can get on your feet. So I do have that coming in. So that creates a bit of a buffer. Before, I was dependent on my dad and my sister. So it was a very difficult time as well mentally because I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm so old. I'm still dependent on my dad and my sister. Who do I think I am? Blah, blah, blah. But I was like, okay, I need to think of this in terms of like phases. But towards the end of last year, I got to the point where I could release my sister.
Yeah, yeah.
Like let her go. And so now I'm transitioning. I'm getting into the point where I'm like, I can tell my dad, like, okay, I'm good. But he's just kind of like helping me out until I get on my feet. But I'm building up that like nest egg and things like that with the money that I have. I feel like this is the first time I'm at a point where I can like pay my rent and I can like, do all these things. So I'm in a point where I actually can take care of myself. And so now additional support that I'm getting is being used as a buffer to build up my buffer. Um, and then I'm just like, yeah, being doubling down on growing my audience and direct outreach and stuff. But yeah, I feel like the in terms of money wise, this is the first year where no, from last year towards the end of last year, it started really like getting better and picking up, and I'm able to like do it on my own. But I did get the support, and that's a privilege that I have. Like I know a lot of people don't have that privilege, and so I really acknowledge that, and I'm just like really grateful for the support that I'm able to get. But more than anything, it's really about being resourceful, being as resourceful as you can. Whatever you have, if you do have a job, be as resourceful as you can with that. That is your resource to help you get to where you want to be. Don't see it as something that's like holding you back or getting in your way. See that as a stepping stone that's allowing you to have the resources that you need to build on the side. The guy that I learned from, Will Terry, he talks about how wealth is not built at your job. Wealth is built in your spare time. So I think it's really valuing that and realizing that, yeah, nobody, if you want to build wealth for yourself, it's not going to just from the direct source of income that you have. You're going to have to figure out how to be strategic with that. Not everyone has to start a business, but yeah, it's all about, being strategic, being as resourceful as you can with what you have. So as much as I was getting this support, which is great, I really had to be intentional about where I was channeling that and how I learned to be incredibly frugal. Like now I can live on not a lot, which is great. So even though I know that I need to be mindful of lifestyle creep, as income increases, you have to be mindful of not also inflating your lifestyle. So because I bring in money from like online, $1,000 here is like a lot of money. Actually, it's a lot of money. Well, it's not a lot, but it goes very far for a lot of people. And so I know I have to be mindful of like lifestyle creep. And so the good thing about not having that much for a long period of time is you do learn really what you can live off of. And so I've learned that I actually do not need that much to live. And I understand that. And so now, because I also have these long-term goals and visions for myself, I know that anything that comes in, how to channel those resources to really invest more in myself and in my business to, push me forward and avoid that lifestyle creep. Like, oh, now I can buy this and I can do that and I can avoid that as much as possible. So yeah.
Money can make you crazy. When the dollars start coming in and you look at the exchange rate and you're like, okay. now I totally get you. And I appreciate the honesty, because I can imagine that initially there was a lot of negative feelings associated with like getting the support from here and support from there.
I did. I really felt like, and that's why sometimes I would hesitate to really own like, oh, I'm doing this, like all that stuff. And I was like, and I felt like if I shared it, then no one would listen to me or would be interested or just dismiss me like, oh, you get your support from your parents. What can you tell me or whatever? And that's something that I was really afraid of. But I was like, you know what? I do value transparency as well. And so I want to be honest and be like, yeah, we all have different privileges. We all have different starting points, but to understand like it's a starting point, like where you start doesn't have to be where you end up. I still need to show up and do the work. I still need to manage myself. I still need to, navigate doing something that a lot of people here don't understand. Like you have no idea sometimes it's just like, what do you do? I was like, I freelance.
Let's end it there.
I freelance. Because you draw, I've actually been met mostly with like positive responses, but I did have a friend's dad who was like, amen, and was like, oh, I do this and I do children's books, and I was like, is there any money in that? And I was like, yo, I have made like double what I was making as a lawyer in like 2 weeks the other time. Like that actually happened, and I was just like, yes, there is, and so sometimes, you do have to, there are different challenges and different ways to go about it. But yeah, I feel like more than anything, my number one message is if you do have support, milk it as much as you can. But if you don't have support, that doesn't have to rule you out. Because as much as I have financial support, I didn't have emotional support. And a lot of people actually attribute business failure to low emotional intelligence than low finances or low means. Like, not having money is not the thing that's gonna prevent you from succeeding. I mean, it's an important factor, but it's not the key thing. Like, if you do not know how to manage your emotions, if you do not know how to manage your mind, then even if you don't feel worthy of having money, then you are like that upper limit thing. Money comes in. That's why we do that. That's why we spend. It's an upper limit thing. When more money comes in and we're like, I am not worthy of having this much money, or money is evil, or money is bad, then we spend it away to get back to that point where that baseline, which we are comfortable with. We don't like it, but we're used to it. Like, oh, money needs to be a struggle, and we always need to be living paycheck to paycheck. It always needs to be hard. When it comes in and it's not hard, then you're like, what the heck is going on? Spend it away. So that's why I need to do, like, we all have our work and our journey that we need to do. So emotional management, that's something I had to teach myself. This learning how to manage my emotions, learning how to be a person who can handle business, and I can count on myself and rely on myself. I had to teach that to myself. So yeah, we all have our different privilege.
100%.
Yeah.
I think there's two things that I was thinking. Hopefully I don't forget the second one because it's leaving my mind. I think of it kind of I think of it kind of like school, right? Like, your parents support you through school. They pay for your bills, they pay for your accommodation, your books, and all of this stuff for you to start setting up for your next life, right? And if you're doing the same thing, which is basically what you're doing, you're setting up for your next life, it makes sense that you get some sort of support, especially when it's something so unconventional.
Definitely.
I think for anybody who's
so I'm grateful for a father who understands that and who's willing to show up. And I know that that's rare. So I'm grateful that that's a resource that I have.
Yeah. My gosh, this other thing is gone. I'm so mad.
No!
Remind me, what did you say? You said something, and I was this is the thing. I'll be gone, and I'll be like, and then it's too late. But yeah, I think it's really important to use your unfair advantages, right? Sometimes you got yes, okay, I remember. Oh, thank goodness. One thing that I really, really want to do, and I talk about this endlessly on the podcast, is one of the reasons why this thing even exists is because I wanted it and I didn't have it earlier on in my life. I didn't have like someone to tell me like, hey, you can do it. Like, you can go and entertain and educate and do all of this stuff.
100%. Yeah.
And I want more people. I still want to make a community where people can come together and we can all support each other. And encourage each other, especially in places like Malawi, where, the creative work still isn't, supported.
Yeah, no, I totally love your mission and your vision. I think it's very, very important because, man, the abilities, the creative abilities, the skill set, the talent, I'm hesitant to use the word talent, but yeah, it's there, like, it's here, but it just needs to be cultivated. And like I said, if you don't have anyone saying that you can do this, like, it's okay for you to trust yourself and go for what you want. It's very challenging. So the having a place where, a platform where you can do that, I think it's really, really important work that you're doing.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, important work.
It is.
I thank you. Work. Thank you. I believe it. When I got feedback from the first, because like obviously this has been like in the works in my mind for a long time, and like I put it out, and then I started getting feedback from people, and I was like, maybe this is more than just a fun thing for myself. This actually
100%.
It's weird.
No,
but
we're saving lives. Brian McDonald actually says it. No, like, he was in the interview and, he was talking about, creative work and stuff like that. And the guy interviewing him was like, yeah, no, we as creatives, we have something to say. I mean, we're not saving lives or anything. He's like, no, we are. We're saving lives. Like, and he was like, there are people who, when you create something, like, even if it's a song, like, we so undervalue, like, you just had to break up with somebody and you're just feeling down on yourself, and then you hear somebody talk about the experience and you're like, are they in my brain? Like, oh my God. that act of feeling seen, we really undervalue that as a society. And a lot of people, that can save people. A lot of people just need to be seen, to feel like they're witnessed. And when you watch something where you're like, oh my gosh, that person looks like me and they've gone through what I've gone through and maybe I can do it too, that's saving a life. Like if you present a different option where somebody just was like, I can't do this, I'm going to be stuck in this dead end routine and just live my life like this, and then you present them a different option and they're like, wait, I can do something different, that's saving a life. I look at all the influences that I've had, people who are brave enough to share their stories on the internet, and because of that, I had the courage to pursue what I wanted. I'm like, oh my gosh, they have saved my life, because I would have been in a completely different place in a life that I hated. And now I'm here doing what I absolutely love every single day, and that's a gift. And if you can give that gift to other people, we are saving lives. If somebody is creative, if you're putting your work out there, if you're being brave, you are saving lives. It's not just the doctors and the, emergency people. Our work is also important. And I'd love for more people to know that, like more creatives to have confidence in what they're doing. I think it's so important.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. What did I want to ask? That was amazing. So thank you. That I think that's going to be very encouraging for a lot of people who feel like their work is insignificant. So
yeah.
You are in the service industry a little bit.
Okay.
How do you, because you're delivering something for someone, and how do you deal with unsatisfied customers, unsatisfied partners, or whatever when you deliver your work?
Yeah, I had a mental breakdown the other day. No, not really. Yeah, you have to separate. This is the thing. If you want to do this professionally, then you actually have to find the balance between adding a personal touch to your work versus taking it personally. So a lot of creatives are extremely attached to their work. And so any attack on their work feels like an attack on them. And so you have to do the work of understanding that it's okay for somebody to not like what you make. And it's okay for you to not get something right the first time. We are not mind readers. And this is the other thing of the creative mythology where, if somebody comes to us and there's like, I have this vision, and then we think we have this pressure that I just need to create it exactly as they envision it. And if I don't hit the mark, then I'm a failure as a creative. Am I really even creative? That kind of thing. So I had to let go of all of that and understand that basically my skill set is on hire right now. And so they have the right to tell me if that vision is not aligned to what I have, like what I have produced is not aligned to what they wanted. And so I find this a lot where it's difficult, where I will put in my personal preferences. Like the client will say, do this. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, that will not look nice. Like, what? Not my thing, but I have to separate myself from that. And I found if I'm doing client work and I am trying to push my preferences, ideally, first of all, they're coming to me for my style. So generally they like what I do in general. So that's fine. But everyone has their like little things that they want done. And so whenever I try and push my own personal preferences instead of actually listening to the client, that's where I get a lot of this like friction and miscommunication. When I don't understand the client and what they're trying to do, that's when I'm more likely to create something that, I'll get negative feedback on, and stuff like that. So as a creative, as frustrating as it is, when we get like, bad feedback or whatever, if you're in the service industry, like you said, like it is your responsibility to ask as many questions as possible ahead of time so that you understand exactly what it is that you're trying to create. That's number one. But number two, you are not actually a mind reader. And the best that you can do is to do the best that you can and get feedback on it as quickly as possible. A lot of the times I would like procrastinate. I'm like, oh, I don't know. It needs to be perfect. And then I'd waste a lot of time trying to make it perfect instead of just doing the first iteration as quickly as possible, sending it out and getting that feedback from the client. And if it's not what they like, I have this thing where I'm like, I'm allowed to be upset about it. Like, it's okay. I'm allowed to not like the fact that they don't like what I did. It's fine. But I need to also understand as a professional that it's my skill set that's on hire, and it's my responsibility to deliver what they have, what they want. So instead of defaulting to getting mad, number one thing is, if you get negative feedback from a client, do not respond right away. Ever. Don't do that. Take a walk, take a shower, do whatever. But like, step back, never respond right away when your emotions are high and you're feeling whatever. Take a step back, and then really just allow yourself to access creative and see it as a creative problem to solve. Because if you are in the service industry, if you're a creative, your thing is solving problems. That's what you do. You're getting paid to solve a problem. So solve the problem. If the problem is they don't like it, it's your responsibility to figure out what you need to make it happen. Maybe ask more questions, get more resources, do the best that you can. But at the end of the day, there are just some people that are just completely difficult to work with. And it's just, so either you'll get fired or you need to fire the client, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. As long as you're doing the best that you can, you know that you did your best. It's okay. If the relationship ends on not the best terms, again, don't take it personally. Some things are just, it's difficult. It's challenging. Human relationships can be challenging, and we're not going to get it right all the time. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
Have you ever botched a job?
No, not completely to the point of like you're fired type of no, but I have like missed the mark completely. Like, they wanted this and they're like, no, this isn't it, and then I go and I cry and I'm like, oh, not good enough. And then I'm like, Vanessa, you're fine, it's okay, make mistakes, go back. And then I listen. I think my strength is, after I have dried my tears, I am very good at pushing it aside and then really sitting and thinking, where did I go wrong? Like, evaluating, and did I really listen? What did I really miss? And then seeing where I made my mistakes and where I need to double down. And so I really do my best in that. Like, I'm now at a point where, having made those mistakes, just be like, okay, now I understand that the aim is not to hit it right at the first time. The aim is to learn how to be a good listener and to be able to take and incorporate feedback. And if it's something that I can't do, to be honest about it, because I did have a client who was asking me to do something and it was beyond the scope of the project. And I had to be honest. I'm like, no, I can't do that particular thing that you're asking me to do. So that's also what prevents you from getting into like weird trouble of like being seen as a scam artist, where you promise to deliver something and then you can't. You gotta be honest. If you can't do it, be honest. You can't do it, so yeah.
And I'm sure it's tempting, because you look what they're asking you, you look at the potential payment of it, and you're like, could I finesse this? Could I?
Yeah. No, you just stress yourself and everybody. Don't do it.
Okay. So how do you go about, I'm assuming that like every project is kind of different. So how do you go about pricing, and what are the factors that kind of contribute to this is the price that I'm estimating, and this and that, and how does that work?
Very challenging. There's a book, Graphic Artists Handbook Guild, I don't know, something like that. So that has the industry standards when it comes to like visual work and like design, illustration, that kind of stuff. So usually I'll start around there. I'll do a Google search as well about like industry standard pricing. But then I also try and take into account my skill set and, who I am working with as well. And so it's, like I said, I think the key thing before I price is understanding the project, the nature of the project. So I have to ask a lot of questions. But generally right now I am working off of like a fixed rate. So I do understand. I still feel like I'm building my skill set. I'm still learning the business side of things. And so I have like my skill set, but generally my price will range in the ballpark of between $150 to $250 per illustration, so something like that. And I'm taking into account that's actually quite, it's not on the low end, but it's relatively on the low end in terms of industry standards and benchmarks. But I mean, for me, where I'm at, it does translate to quite a bit if I get a project for like 10 illustrations, or children's books are typically about 32-page illustrations. And so I charge per page, you know, things like that. So at this moment, I'm working with a flat fee because it's easier. But there are definitely different factors that you have to do. If you're a visual artist, what you're doing is you're not selling the work itself, you're selling the rights to use your work. So I'm still working on understanding usage rights and stuff like that. And it's so funny because every time they say things like consult a lawyer, and I'm like, I feel like I need to consult a lawyer. I have no idea what is going on. Like at the time I was researching about this, I was still a lawyer, and it'd be like consult a lawyer, and I was like, consult me. I don't even know what's going on. You know, so it was very interesting. But yeah, I'm not a lawyer anymore, so really consult a lawyer. But like but you don't always have to consult a lawyer. But yeah, with everything, you know, take things with a grain of salt. I do have, like I said, skills do transfer. So when it comes to contracts and things like that, the legal side of things is not as intimidating as I guess it would be for other artists. But yeah, I still have a lot to learn in terms of like the licensing world, because yeah, with visual arts, it's copyrights, you're selling usage. And if somebody is like, no, I want the complete copyright to that, then you need to charge them hella money, because that's a complete buyer. You have no right in the work and stuff like that. And nobody actually ever needs an exclusive buyout, you know, all that stuff. But anyway, that's something I'm still learning on. I can't really speak on fully, but yeah, those are things that I have to factor. But for now, for simplicity's sake, I like to use a flat rate, and I like to think about what are my expenses, what would cover all of my expenses. Okay, then I need this amount of projects, and you know, that kind of thing. So that's how I work with it.
You say you said a number, and then I had to put on the poker face, because I was like, "Huh, that's so much money." And then you followed it with, "Yeah, so this is the low end," and I was like, "Huh, this is so much money." Oh my god! I mean, oh yes. Oh, that's interesting. I'm so impressed.
You did good.
Like,
you got
dude, I was. Oh my gosh, it's crazy to think that someone out there is saying, "Oh my gosh, there's no money in art. There's no money in these drawing things," and then you're out here making like 4 figures, possibly more, potentially more. And I think like it's the more you know, right? The more you look into it and realize. Yeah. I think there needs to be. Because I also do social media managing. I haven't done in a while. Yeah. I've been on a hiatus. But I know one of the hardest things for me was finding how do I price things? How much do I charge? Like, I know how much I want.
Definitely.
But how do I start breaking this thing down? And even hunting down prices was difficult, because a lot of people in the marketing sphere, they don't put their prices out. So you have to book a consulting call. So I don't know how about you're like, hey, hi, no, don't worry. I want to know how much you charge so that I can do the same this side. I don't want anything that you're offering. I'm so sorry. So it's very difficult. So finding resources, I think that might be something to invest in, like finding resources for people to benchmark how much to charge. Food for thought.
Do you do social media marketing like for businesses like in Malawi, or
I started with Malawi. And now I'm trying to break it. This was like after COVID. You know, COVID, as terrible as COVID was, I think it opened so many doors for people, especially in the creative digital world.
Definitely.
So after COVID, the things started opening up. I was like, let me give this a try, because I saw people who were doing it, but like I could tell that there wasn't any soul in it. It's like they just do a poster and then they charge people for the poster, but it's not actual like engagement, knowing your audience, looking at feedback, looking at metrics, all of that stuff. I don't think they were actually doing that. So I was like, I think I can do this. I like talking to people. I like creating stuff. So I started doing that. I did it for a spa and a sushi restaurant.
Nice.
And then I came this side, and honestly, they've been beating me, bro. They've been beating my ass. It's crazy.
Really?
So hard. I think after I got my experience with there and I started learning more, I wanted to kind of change the clientele that I was working with. So I was targeting like real estate guys. I was targeting finance and stuff like that, which is fine. But they're a bit more guarded with who they give their money to. So you have to really present like someone that is a safe bet, even if I can do the work, which I can. They still want to feel some kind of security, which at the time I didn't really understand. I was like, come on, I can do the work. You can trust me. We had a conversation. We agreed. So now I am in a stage where I have to revamp everything. I'm also like in a revamp thing. I did a competitor analysis. I stalked all the people that I admire.
Went all in.
I stalked them. I looked for their prices. I'm
That's
Googling
good.
all this stuff. But it was hard. It was really, really hard. And that might be a huge barrier for a lot of people. So yeah, I want to service everywhere. I don't want to be limited to just Malawi. I want to do Namibia. Well, I want to be international, honestly. Because why just do one place when the world is open?
Do you have an online profile for your social media?
It's terrible.
Business.
It's terrible. I need to revamp everything. There is an Instagram, but it's like there's hardly anything. So I'm in the phase where I have to revamp my Instagram. I have to pay for a website, maybe. That one, especially if I'm going with those kind of clients, I think it's very important because they want that credibility.
Definitely.
So
that they want to see that professional, looking. If you're targeting those people. I would say knowing who you're targeting is really important. If you're targeting the big boys, then they're going to want to see the professional people. But if you're targeting, for example, social media management for other creatives, then they would probably want to see the work that you're doing. So it would be more heavy on your own personal content strategy. So 100%. Making sure that you're putting content out and sharing value, and what is the importance of a social media manager. And so I still think there does need to be an element of a content strategy there, but
100%.
Knowing where you're targeting makes a difference.
Yeah. So that is one of the fallbacks. Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you for reminding me. So there was a question. Hopefully I haven't derailed too much, but there was a thing that you said, and I read this in a book. It's called Ignore Everything and 38 Other Instructions for Creatives, something like that. Ignore Everyone. Yeah. So it's like a book of like 38, 37 different tips from this guy who is a graphic. I think he's an artist as well. I'm not sure, but he has two jobs basically. And in the book, there is a theory. I think it's called the sex money theory. It has nothing to do with any of those things though. But the idea is that being a creative involves two things: the flashy, cool, exciting side, which is like the sex part, and the boring, annoying administrative stuff that you don't like to do, which is what actually brings in the money. And I think it made sense what you were talking about, how it's like what you love doing is nature and this and that, and like that's what brings life to you. So that's why you wanted to draw. But then the money is in the kids' books, is in the this and that. And how every creative venture has that in some degree. Actors have to do those signings and go to interviews and do whatever red carpet events that might not even be as exciting as portraying the character,
being on set.
So I think that's something that people need to think of and keep in mind, that it's not always going to be glitz and glamour. Every now and then you gotta toil and toss with some of the harder things that you're not used to. And the same with the social media thing. You gotta sell your soul a little bit to start getting to do what you want to do. But it's one of those things. The last thing I wanted to say, it's not even really a question. I just wanted to get your insight on it. So I used to draw a lot. I think my earliest memories, I have two early memories. One is drawing on a table. My mom hated it, but I drew all over this table. My second one is she's a lawyer as well. And she had books on books on books, like photocopied, whatever, and she'd move through them. I have no idea what they actually were. But the good thing for me is that she would print only on one side So on the other side, it was like blank pages. So it was like a book. It was a new book. It was a book to draw in. So I'd take that and I'd fill it with so many drawings and so many different scenes. I wasn't that good at the time, but I loved drawing. And I got better.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who we both share this love of drawing. And he used to do this interesting thing. He admitted to me why he was doing it, but he used to do this interesting thing where when I draw something, we shared a drawing book. So I take it home, I draw, I give it to him, and then we just go back and forth. We draw in class, we draw outside of class. It was but he had this habit of whenever I draw something, he'd draw it better. He'd draw the exact same thing, but better. And I was like, what's happening here? This is weird. Yeah. So he told me that like he admired me, and like it was kind of like it's kind of like learning from your master, but also he was trying to better me. There was a bit of jealousy, but there was also like a bit of like artistic competition going on in there. And so we would do that, go back and forth. And at some point I also stopped drawing. I can't really remember why. I don't know if it was intimidating. I don't know if it was like, oh, he's gotten so much better than me, or if it was school that distracted me. I'm not sure, but I stopped drawing for the longest time. And whenever I get that urge to come back to drawing, I'm petrified, because I know that I'm not as good as I should be if I was still drawing and still working. So I will pick it up and maybe draw and be like, oh, this is disgusting. I need to go. I need to leave this alone.
Yeah.
Or there'd be times where I was trying to learn, was it figure drawing? Gesture drawing. So I do challenges where it's like 30 seconds to quickly just draw the outline, and then next. And I kept it up for maybe like a week and a half, and then I was like, hey, this is hard. So what advice would you give me, if you have any?
Well, I mean, what are you struggling with? What's the challenge? Do you want to get back into drawing?
Yeah.
And if you want to get back into drawing, why?
That is a great question.
Do you want to do anything with your drawing? Do you want it to be a hobby? Just okay. Do you want some kind of career?
No, I want
not career, but like.
Yeah, I think I love drawing just for the sake of it. I love art. I still to this day follow lots of my art muses. And me and him have a dream of writing a comic one day. We used to do our little Ishman. I still hold that dream of wanting to make a comic with him. But when I think of it, I don't look at it like for money. It's really just I like it. It's fun, and I want to make something in the world type of thing.
You just want to be able to tell the stories that you want to tell.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're saying that, but you have this resistance. Are you wanting to incorporate drawing as a practice? Like you want to start investing in your skill set and stuff like that, but you're facing that resistance. And so basically, like how to deal with that. First of all, very normal. Very, very, very normal. Today I hadn't drawn for a couple of days because I just finished a big project. And so it was like, it was very taxing. And so I took some time off to just like recuperate. And then I drew again for the first time after like, I think 3 or 4 days of not drawing. And I drew some, like the first thing I drew, I was like, ew. What is this?
Yeah.
I have forgotten everything. So it's normal. Like you come to it, and all that stuff. But again, I think I always come back to the vision, and I think drawing is really tough because it's a very complicated skill set. Because there is a lot that you are learning, and it can feel so overwhelming. And I get this. I can really empathize with you because you're like, where do I even start? Like, where do I even begin and all that stuff? So what you need, if you're just getting back into it, is you need quick wins. So you need things that are going to give you the quick wins. Don't be reaching for the super like rendered like drawing. Okay, I want to draw a guy on a building and he's jumping off, and don't stress yourself out like that. start with something that you can really, really enjoy, and that's really simple. And so for me, I really do want to be able to create these stories and elaborate scenes and stuff like that, but it's very overwhelming. Lots of stuff goes into it. So my more elaborate drawings take a lot from me, because I'm thinking if they're in a building or if they're wherever, I'm thinking perspective, and then all right, cutting that, it's a lot. So when I haven't drawn for a while, I'm struggling, I need a quick win. And my quick win is usually just a girl in a cute outfit, okay? Like that's something I can whip out really quickly and create, and it makes me happy, and it's really, really simple. So when you're just starting out, when you're getting back in, you need to keep it as simple as possible. So you need to find like just the quickest win, the lowest hanging fruit. But bearing in mind that if you keep going, you are going to get there, and you're gonna just asking yourself the question, what would it look like if I didn't stop? I don't like what I make right now. Like maybe this isn't exactly what, it's a quick win, but it's like, it's not exactly what I want to make. I have this issue. Like I was even on Instagram a little bit looking for inspiration earlier. And then I saw some artists, like the artist that I admire, Lois, she created this piece recently and it was beautiful. And it was just, amazing. And I was like, drawing my little girl, and it's so to feel like, what am I doing? But I understand now. I've been in the game long enough to know that, girl, like that is not, like that comparison is not going to help you, and you are on your own journey and you will get there. Those things can feel so intimidating when you feel like it just seems impossible to reach, where you most want to go. But if you start with what is simple and get yourself a quick win, just the act of completing something, even if it's really simple, you're like, oh, I completed something. That sends some dopamine signals to your brain, and it makes it feel like, oh, I want to do it again, And so then you do it again, and then you do it again, and you keep going. And then eventually you want to start asking, when you start, now the excitement wears off, you want to start asking yourself, okay, what would it look like if I didn't stop? Right? And if ever you're feeling intimidated and you're like, oh, overwhelmed, then pare it back even for, like, make it even simpler and easier. Because a lot of the time, I heard this from somebody that I really admire. His name is Dan Coe. He's really good. But he was like, a lot of us think what we need is motivation, when really what we need is clarity. If we're struggling, then maybe what we're trying to do is too complex. We're trying to make it too complicated. We're trying to do too much. We're trying to draw the comic today. We're trying to be at the skill level of the comic right now. And you just have to hold space for the fact that you're not there yet, but you can still find joy in creating something simple. I think that's something I try and remind myself of, so that's kind of where I would go with that. I hope that
does help. That does help, because it is it does feel like this huge task. You look at it, perspective, lighting,
character designing, and like setting them in the
it's a lot. So I'll definitely try and like break it down into like smaller chunks that I can actually see, like, okay, cool, I'm winning. I got this. This is my comfort zone.
What do you like to draw?
I think just people, bro. People doing weird, cool. Okay. I'm far from anything like structures or buildings or even animals. Animals are terrible.
I'm trying to work on animals this year. I sucked at animals.
It's strangely difficult.
I'm trying to draw more puppies.
I'm
starting with puppies. That's my big step. I'm like, I don't ask me to draw the elephant or the zebra.
Let's
I'm like puppies. I can do puppies.
And how do you do the hands? Because I know a lot of people struggle with hands.
You just face them and draw them over and over again, over and over again, and I erase and I draw it. I was working on something like erase and draw again, and then you do it again, and you just keep going until it looks right.
and when you're planning out a drawing, how many do you start? Do you straight start on the tablet? Or do you, oh my gosh, I didn't even ask. Obviously, I know you use Procreate. I don't know if you mentioned it. She uses Procreate. Anyways, do you start straight from the tablet, or do you like try it out on like a paper, see what looks right, and then move?
Yeah. So I'm trying to be more environmentally friendly. No, I'm just kidding. Well, a little bit. Everything's on the iPad now. My entire workflow is completely on the iPad. So sketching, drawing, final render, everything is on the iPad. It's just so much more convenient for me. But I do want to try and get into more traditional sketching eventually, like more physical sketching, but I'm not in a rush to get there, like, because the iPad, as aesthetic as it may seem to draw outside of the page of the iPad, no, it's not practical. Like the screen, like you can't see anything, there's glare, and I'm like, this is not romantic at all. So I've tried the sketching like, you know, outside. No, it does not work. So if I want to like sketch and things like that, I ideally would do that like traditionally, but my entire workflow as it is right now is on the iPad. So yeah, in Procreate.
Oh, that makes sense. That's perfect. Okay, we have 10 minutes. That's it. Honestly, I think that's everything that I wanted to know. Do you have anything that you want to plug? Anywhere where you want to send people?
Yeah, no, just to like my Instagram page at Vanessa Olivia Art, my YouTube channel, the same thing at Vanessa Olivia Art. And yeah, I have a lot of fun projects lined up in the future of personal things that I want to do. I definitely want to start some kind of like where I share my process a little bit more. And yeah, like I said, I'm working on my own like children's books and all of that stuff, and I want to share the process as well of that for anyone who might be interested in what it looks like to illustrate a children's book, get started in that industry. So yeah, if that's something people would be interested in learning or just following along my own journey of just figuring out what the heck to do and how to make this creative life work, that's what I'm all about. So yeah, you can find me on there. I would love to hear from anyone who watches your show and like just say like, yeah.
I'm sure you hopefully, because you're very inspiring, so I'm pretty sure you get a couple people knocking on your door just to say, "Hi, you're amazing, we love you."
Come say hi. Send me a DM on Instagram.
Yeah, send her flood her DMs, all 12 of them. Listen, go listen. No, thank you so much, and thank you for your time. You've dropped nuggets of wisdom in here, so I can't wait for people to hear.
This was so much fun. I had a lot of fun. It was really nice talking to you, and I'm trying to connect more with like-minded people because it really can be lonely sometimes because you're just like by yourself and you feel like, is it just me? But yeah, I really love engaging with other creative minds on a similar journey. So yeah, thank you so much. The honor has been mine, truly.
Oh, stop it. Thanks so much. I'll release you. You can go back into your day. All right, cool. Thanks so much. And I'll see you around.
No, thank you. Right, yeah, bye-bye. No, good talking to you. Bye.
That's our episode. Thanks so much for watching. Honestly, it was a joy to talk to her, and I hope that you got some insight and some lessons that you can take with you and use somewhere else in your life, in your business, anywhere. If you enjoyed this, I would appreciate from the bottom of my heart, I would really appreciate you sharing this, you liking and subscribing, because there's going to be far more interviews coming soon. There's going to be far more conversations with interesting, entertaining people that will probably help you with some of the insights, the lessons, and the journeys that they've gone through. So subscribe for that. Tune in, share, like, and please, if you're listening to this on audio, please leave a review. They're so essential for us to grow because I want to reach a new audience, a greater audience, and I can only do that with your help. That's basically it. Thanks for watching. See ya.